So let's get it popping.
Wasn't supposed to be a big deal.
Well, listen, you are a behind the scenes guy.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't realize how much of a big deal that you are.
Yeah, I've been getting that.
You know what I'm saying?
They called me yesterday a living legend.
Well, accept it, dude. That's what you are. You know what I'm saying?
Could be worse things to be called. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So let's get into our 6 Views interview. You know what I'm saying? This is what we do on our network where I get my one-on-one interviews on. You know what I'm saying? I get to get more in-depth interviews with our guests. Not that we don't get in-depth interviews going on our other programs like We Love Hip Hop and 6 Views Uncut, but the one-on-one aspect gets me to get more information than usual. You know what I'm saying?
That's kind of why I wanted to come and do it in person.
Yeah.
And that was before I realized it was you.
Yeah, well,
which made it even better. So I was like, well, okay.
We've known each other for years too, so this is why I felt it was necessary that we get a one-on-one going on, right?
For real.
So for the people who are just tuning in now on YouTube, and shout out to the YouTube people, make sure to subscribe, all that good stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Make sure you subscribe.
You know what I'm saying? But we got Dave Strickland, aka Gordo, because I know you as Gordo.
Yeah, a lot of people know me as Gordo.
You know what I'm saying?
Gordo Gigante.
Now here we go into the mode of an unknown and lone aboriginal, a mode of only hoping will grow.
But you are, we've talked about once upon a time rapping, but you're a producer, engineer, you know what I'm saying? You've touched many different major projects, you know what I'm saying? And you got a big thing going on right now with the spirit of hip hop, I don't want to make a mistake. Turtle Beach?
Turtle Island.
Nothing but a psychopath wonderland. Deals done underhand. So cold, they said he sold for 100 grand.
Turtle Island, my bad. Turtle Island, you know what I'm saying?
There's probably a place called Turtle Beach. So.
Yeah, there is, right? But even before we get into all that, right? We were talking about the elections off camera, right?
Yeah.
And a question that I even brought up on the We Love Hip Hop podcast, right? With even Joe Biden now being the winner, right? How do you think that the elections are affecting us as Canadians?
Well, it affects us in a lot of ways. I mean, some of the policies of the Trump administration has been affecting us. We always kind of been in touch with what's going on there because of how it affects, our economy and stuff like that. And, being our neighbors, and a lot of the culture, Canadian culture, is engulfed in American culture.
Facts.
A lot of times we feel like we're there, but we're not. But I thought I was in America till about grade 2. I didn't know it was where we were because everything on TV seemed the same, right? Anyway, the big concern is the transition of this whole thing. That's what's concerning me personally, because it has affected me. The virus has affected me.
Yeah.
I've been trapped here. I had a lot of plans for this year outside of the album and maybe touring and stuff like that. All of my interviews have been on virtual, all my performances. I didn't expect none of that.
Yeah.
So I'm taking it with how everybody else is. I'm not being self-centered about it, because we all had plans and I got affected as much as everybody else. But I mean, I probably could have went back to the States, but I chose that based on the numbers to stay here. And now with the election, and I mean, Trump is definitely an anomaly. Yeah. So that's been the whole thing about it. I mean, under normal circumstances, who knows where we'd be at right now, because, I think a different type of president, even Bush would have handled this different, So, I mean, it's a tough one. I mean, there was a lot of hope in the beginning when I kind of looked at Trump as being like a guy who was not a politician and getting elected, and it kind of being like a Jesse Ventura kind of thing, and was hoping he could bring that sort of change. And in a lot of ways he did, but then he kind of went sideways everywhere and lost me. So I can't support that for many reasons. But, I'm kind of glad it's over, because it's not really, but the beginning of the end.
The first part of the hill.
Because I don't have to tell you what's been happening because you already know, but some of the stuff is just scary and just man, it affects so many people. And I mean, it's one thing to be a jerk or whatever, all these other labels, but some of the stuff is just like, really, dude, like something's wrong with you know, like something's wrong. Like the emperor's wearing no clothes, you know. So yeah,
that should be a title of a song. Right
I've been happy all day that it finally, because it's been 4 or 5 days of us leading up to like what's gonna happen. Is it, and it's like, is he gonna challenge it? He's challenging it, but like, you know, he should just do take the high road. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But he could still run again in 4 years.
This is true.
Now, it depends what happens.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to catch no charges. Everybody's like going on about these. I'm like, have you ever seen a president catch any charges? Look at all the stuff Bush did and the war crimes, and nobody they don't have time for that. He ain't going to catch nothing. He's just going to keep it moving. He might go bankrupt. You never know, right?
And a lot of times rich people don't go to jail.
Well, yeah, and I believe in karma, so.
Yeah. And even like with what you got going on right now, you got like a project that just dropped. I've been going through a few music videos and stuff, and I've been seeing you do like some press, right?
Yeah.
So explain to us this now, the spirit of hip hop. Okay. I know there's different levels. There's the DJing is the drum.
Yeah.
The MC is the storyteller.
Yeah.
The B-boy is the dancer. And the tagger is the sand painter.
Yeah.
The DJ is the drum. The MC is the storyteller.
That is a dope
well, I got it tatted on my arm.
Sick.
This was a painting I had done that was in the McMichael.
Okay. It was in
an exhibit that had to do with photography, telling Toronto's hip hop story.
Okay.
And they had some of my pieces in there, some of my owls. So I got that titled on me because it was like, I never expected to be in the McMichael, right? So that was special. And it also resonates with me because of the project and like what you just said. Because what the project is saying, what Brother Ernie Panacoli says at the beginning is that, you know, hip hop is indigenous culture. And a lot of people, you know, might get a little confused there, because I'm not saying that it didn't come about the way it did. And if you go look at like Hip Hop Evolution and some of the other, you know, Buster's album just came out. He talks about it too, giving respect to Jam Down Jamaica for bringing that. But also what we're saying is not now us being indigenous to Turtle Island doesn't mean, and we're not claiming that. We're saying that's a spirit that's always been here, that's the same as indigenous culture.
Yes.
You're indigenous. Yeah. There's, you know, just because you're not indigenous to Turtle Island, Black people or African American people or people of descent in diaspora, wherever, the Caribbean, all that is indigenous from Africa. It's the same difference. So like we're all brothers. It's not me claiming, saying, no, we invented hip hop. No. That's the spirit that's been here. It's the same. If you look at what hip hop does, and it being a culture in itself, and then you look at our indigenous cultures, and that's why we bring those together, because in a lot of situations I was noticing that a lot of our youth weren't embracing their cultures, but they were embracing hip hop. And that's when I had that moment like, yo, what are you guys doing? It's the same thing. Yeah. You can display it in different ways, but it's the same thing. So like have some pride in that, right? Because a lot of us are, especially here, and I mean, I'm sure there's tons of stories that are similar in different ways, but we're taught to be ashamed of who we are, or ashamed of our culture and stuff like that. Yeah. So the meaning behind this is to, you know, bring that together and embrace that and be proud. You know what I'm saying? No matter who you are, if I'm doing it my way, you might do it your way. And we used to have that. If you used to look at like, you remember the days of native tongues and, you know, with the Africa medallions and stuff like that, like there was that pride and that identity. So, I mean, I don't know why it left or if it did or what happened, but, you know, it's kind of similar to that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, there's a whole bunch of reasons that we could get into, like corporate interest and all that type of stuff. But even like to stay on the indigenous aspect, because you're very heavy in the indigenous community, right? Can you give us some more like native rappers that we should check for? Like I know, like the most I know is like Snotty Nose Rez Kids. I know them; they're really popular. Right.
There's a lot of artists right now that are on the album. Guys like City Natives, Aspects, Dreezus, Q Rock. But there's also guys that aren't on the album. There's guys like Sebastian Gaskin, who's a rapper and a singer-songwriter. There's so much talent. There's guys like Wolf Castle. There's so many people I've been meeting before and after while working on the project that, I mean, there was so much talent for me to even try to like, I can't even get it on one album.
Yeah.
And the more the album built, the more people I kept meeting.
Yeah.
And I wasn't trying to leave anybody out or make it a best of, but there's so much talent. And that's the idea of this, was to bring light to the, we have talent over here. And maybe if you listen to this album, you'll discover somebody else, right? And that's what the album is about. It's not about me. It's more about bringing the two sides of it together, because a lot of people keep saying Indigenous hip hop, Native hip hop, when I've been fighting a battle where I'm championing that, but we're trying to get rid of that because it's just hip hop, right?
It's just hip hop.
It's just hip hop.
The people who are spitting it are basically Native.
Right, but
so nobody, not to interrupt you,
right?
Nobody says when Big Pun started blowing up,
no,
he's Spanish hip hop.
That's right. That's what I'm saying. So I mean, but there's also a backstory to that and why that's happened, right? And that goes back to the community and the colonialism, and that applies to some of the other people too. But I noticed this is a little different, right? So I don't push too hard, but I'm trying to be inclusive, right? And the idea was to put, different artists from different walks of life together, right?
Yeah.
And not too many people are able to do that. In a lot of ways, people don't know each other, or there's no common denominator.
Yeah.
So I tend to be that common denominator. So I thought, you know what? If I approach it like this, maybe we could build something out of that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because you got a really dope video with Jordan.
Yeah.
That's We Love Hip Hop alumni, by the way.
Yeah.
And Spade from Citizen Kane.
Citizen Kane.
You know what I'm saying?
There's some history there, right?
Right. And then
Whitey Don's in there.
Whitey Don.
Superman's one of the dopest.
Yeah.
And not to forget Artson. Artson is dope in his own right. I just shout out to Artson. I just did a song with him called Alone that just dropped a couple weeks ago.
Dope.
But yeah. And he's been doing like a song a week for 40 weeks straight. That was the 40th song.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's, a feat in itself, because people forget there's more to just, you got the production, you got the orchestration, but you got to record, you got to mix, you got to master.
Facts.
Even if you don't do video, then you got to promote, then you got to do artwork. A lot of stuff goes into a song.
Yeah.
And a lot of people who don't understand music or how it's made, back in the day, like you take Elvis days or the 50s and stuff when it was live off the floor, when they cut a record. Maybe people don't know how much technology's changed since then. You could do it like that, but records aren't done like that because we had no choice, right?
People are not all in the same room with the guitar playing and the singer.
We had no other way to do it, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't know, like when they listen, like, and I might have been the same way at some point, but stereo, mono. Why is it called stereo? Why is it mono? They're hearing two tracks. Okay, well then I have to explain. Two tracks. Don't you think about all that music in there? But nowadays when we have the beat machines and making production and MIDI and all kind of stuff, that's a whole new world. If you were born in that then it might be normal, right? But I don't come from an era from before that, right? So to me, music wasn't on a machine, it was a band, and you know what I'm saying? And I don't play guitar and stuff. I'm just like, I play stuff, but I've all picked it up. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't taught. So like, in my mind, that's like a modern thing, right? So maybe you don't think about that stuff, because I think from a point of view of when I make music, somebody actually playing it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you've ever had, you had to have had, maybe not, but if you've ever had the experience of where you make a beat on, like, say, an MPC or something, and then the song gets big, and then a band plays it, it trips you out. Because especially if you're a guy like me, who I didn't study piano, I wasn't trained.
Yeah.
I'm just like a hip hop guy and learned from DJing and from going through samples and stuff like that. That's where I picked up a lot of my musical, so I can think outside the box. And I have friends who are like trained musicians, and they kind of get stuck. But I come from this off the road way of looking in, and to see that happen blows my mind, right? Like, wow, like, who am I? Like, oh, I'm actually writing music when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
And I tend to be hard on myself, not to give myself that much props. Like, who do you think you are? You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, you do a lot, because for the people who don't know, like, even for like our audience, who's, you know, for the most part, we have a very young audience. You're like a Grammy Award, Juno Award winning producer and engineer.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you've touched a lot of different projects. So what do you, and I have a list of projects here that we're gonna get into, but in your opinion, what do you think is the biggest project that you've
Well, the Drake stuff is definitely big, but there's been a lot of stuff that's come from that. But there was a lot of stuff I was doing before that that was big, like the Red and Meth albums, anything to do with the Def Squad. You know, but then there's stuff, I always forget stuff.
Right.
Because when you're like a studio guy, sometimes you're like, you end up doing sessions or they become a blur and you forget what songs come out when and how big they did, or you end up not being a part of that, which is the gift and the curse of being in the business, because sometimes you miss enjoying the records. Like, like I've worked on records where I'm like, damn, I enjoy the experience of being on the inside, but I would have liked to be just a fan, right? So it's hard because I forget some of the projects that I did, like, you know, the Grindin' remix what I did with Cardinal. Like, you know, I have that session and I laugh because I'm like, you know, I have stuff. Today I just posted on my Instagram the Choclair tape from the Let's Ride reel, right? From like, because I have some crazy I was like, oh, my house is like a museum.
You engineered Let's Ride?
No, but I have the tape. I actually don't have any credits on that whole album, but I did engineer on that album.
Okay.
There's a long story behind that.
Shout out to Choclair.
And some of the tapes, you know, different people did different mixes. There's a story behind that, but you know.
Okay, let's.
Well, because
I want to get
if you look at Ice Cold, right?
Yes.
You have songs like Flagrant that I blatantly recorded that, and I can blatantly. Me and Sox or Choclair would talk about the story of that session of. It goes back to what you and I were talking about earlier about 1-inch tapes. And so say there was 10 tracks of music or 8 and one track's empty out of at least 15, and we had vocals and the chorus, we didn't have enough tracks for the chorus. So Socrates, I had to sample Sox's choruses tracks onto the EPS and then fly them back as a stereo to save room. And put that on either 1 or 2 tracks, and then give us more room for to do vocals and stuff, right? So that song definitely wasn't recreated. You know what I'm saying? But because of the way Gadget was and certain things, I think I was in Atlanta when those albums started coming out. So when people were doing credits, like, why did I get? I've already had these conversations with people, but my name should be on the album. That's why I claim records like that. When I say, 10, whatever Juno count or whatever, I'm like, yo, if I don't have credit on the album, you call everybody who was there and ask them, and they're going to tell you I was there and I did it. So now whoever's fault it was, I'm not getting into that because that's not what it's about. The fact is, we all know. So I still claim it and nobody can tell me otherwise, even if my name's not on there. Because there's stuff like that Ice Cold album, Grassroots is another one. Shout out to Rest in Peace of Swift. Even on the vinyl version of the Grassroots album, there's a skit where you can hear on the skit is me engineering in the skit. And I'm like, that proves, because I, tracked most of that album. It was either myself, El Goffer, or Grasshopper in those sessions, right? And a lot of times during that era, I took up a lot of slack. I was doing a lot of Ghetto Concept sessions and Socrates and Cardinal and Choclair, and like I was doing whatever. I was just happy to be doing sessions. So I was like, I'm okay, let's go. I just wanted to do hip hop. Right? So it didn't matter to me, but it was important to have those credits for history later. But fortunately for me, I just kept going and built on it. But I include them because I did it, and nobody can say otherwise. You know what I'm saying? Well, and that's why I flaunt stuff like, "Yo, I got the tapes." You know what I'm saying?
Well, we talked about off camera how you and the next mutual friend of ours that we'll get into.
Right.
We'll leave the name out because we'll get into it. Right. How y'all opened the box and found all of these.
Yeah, when I seen all the tapes, I was like, "Wow, so I was going through the storages, and I'm like, I'd been looking for some things because sometimes you get so much blessings. And you forget how much you have. So you got to be mindful. Like I was on the way here, it was traffic. And I usually don't give to people in cars, especially with the Corona. I'm on some street. I'm like, I'll tell you to back up.
Yeah.
But it was some native dude, and I don't know him, but he looked mashed up, and I just gave him all the money I had in my pocket. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, you got to remind yourself. So when we seen all that, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You know, because I try to move things on instead of keeping, and some people hoard stuff. And,
Yeah.
You know, I used to do that with gear, but I'm like, man, I need space in my life. Space is important, you know?
Yeah, and you've been in the game for a minute, so you're going to collect a lot of fucking
Yeah, it happens, right?
Let's go through some of the things that are some of the people that you've worked with, right? Because you've worked with a plethora of artists, right? You got the Method Man chain on. Or
Yeah,
Method
well,
Man,
this is
logo.
the Method Man. This actually says Mi'kmaq.
Mi'kmaq.
But it is the Method Man logo.
Right?
This is that Method Man approved. Method Man seen this, and maybe he didn't realize, because that day I didn't really there were so many people.
Yeah.
It was a Red and Meth, I think City Natives and I opened, and then Socrates, and then it was Beer Fest, Red and Meth. So that
couple years
show,
ago.
yeah, I didn't really get to spend too much time with them, and I hadn't seen them in a minute. But those guys are brothers, so it's like the next day.
Yeah.
But
and it's not to interrupt you, you've worked with Meth.
yeah, I worked with Method Man a few times.
Right?
Quite a few songs. So, I mean, he got to see this, which was funny, because I had another one on that day, a Death Squad one, which was the Death Squad logo beaded, which I gave to Eric Sermon last summer when I was there.
Nice.
Because I felt like, you know, and now everybody wants one, so I'm going to make some more. But these take a lot of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, Method Man, I, you know, was lucky enough to have memories of, like, you know, being in 36 Chambers at the console, and RZA's studio. And
Bong Bong.
with pretty much, I don't remember what song we were doing, but most of the Wu was there that day.
Crazy.
And I remember sitting at the console, like, you know, tracking or whatever. And it reminded me of, like, a session I had one time. I had a session with Ghetto Concept that was like, whole heap of Mandem was there. And I remember the studio was full. It was soundproof. And it was similar to that, but it was 36 chambers.
Yeah.
And it was like, I want to say all of the Wu because, you know, I mean, Old Dirty was gone, but it was, you know, almost everybody that day. And
That
I
was going to
remember
be one of my questions if Old Dirty was there.
he
but
wasn't alive then.
yeah,
I remember
rest in
being
peace,
like,
Old Dirty.
damn, like, wow. You know, like, it's one thing, I guess it's a thing with groups. It's harder to get everybody in the same place sometimes, right? So that, you know, but memories like that only was in that because I was up the street hanging with Red.
That's
And got a phone call.
I was just about to ask, how do you end up in the 36 chamber studio?
Because I got a call, yo, can you go, RZA needs you. Can you go down the street and help him? Because those guys, like, everybody's family, Death Squad, Wu-Tang, and a lot of, like, you know, Red and Meth had the same manager. And so there's a lot of, you know, it's brethren. So, you know, if somebody needs something, yo, gee. And then at the time, it was around Tommy and them. Rest in peace to Tommy Uzo. But Tommy and them, you know, Tommy did a lot of records and was around a lot of hip hop, and being around those guys was lucky enough to really have opportunities where I could just pull up in New York and just hang out and be around MCs and producers, and then that's how things would happen.
Okay.
You know, like, you know, just being like at, you know, one time I was at Eric Sermon's house and the door, somebody knocked on the door. And he was like, yo, G, can you get that? And I opened the door and it was Prince Paul.
Nice.
And I was like, oh, snap. Like,
Yeah.
it's like you're in a movie. Me and Socks always say it's like being in the TV in America, right? Because if you're around the right people, or me and Keith Murray and Tyrese were at studio Sony when it used to be on 9th or 10th or whatever.
Yeah.
Walking down the street one day, summertime, running into Diddy and somebody.
Crazy.
Like crazy memories. It's like New York that only happens in New York. You know what I'm saying? And it's just that energy. You know what I'm saying?
That's crazy.
Yeah, so I have a lot of memories like that. It's just from being there, B. You know, just you got to spend the time and time costs money. But like I've been lucky enough to be in this game since I was young. Since, like, you know, I always tell the story how I came up with Rumble. Rumble is from my neighborhood, so Rumble was the first one to let me use his SP 1200. And that's how I started learning how to produce and make beats and stuff. And he the story is that was the first SP in Canada at the time.
Now, not to interrupt you, because these stories are very essential.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to make sure that the people are also aware that you have a very dope interview with my brethren, Big Tweez and Thrust.
Tweez and Thrust.
On Views Before the Six.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we probably talk about that because Rumble...
Yes, he did.
He brought that SP from New York, but he was taught by Scott LaRock how to use it. But I didn't know that at the time. He told me that later. I found out this later. I'm like, oh, damn. So I didn't get the connection of him, Scott LaRock, then me, and then... Because I always thank him because those things, like, they might be little things, but like meeting Gadget or when me and 40 met, and then like all these little things, me and Eric or certain people you connect with and then you do music with and build on, like those, come into play later, right? So that was an important part that I didn't know later because I had to, grow from there in my own way. But I still recognize that looking back, right?
Yeah.
Because Rumblin' Strong was a important historical moment in hip hop in Toronto because, Jam on Strong, he retired, but he won the DMC, right? From the Canadian, won the Canadian DMCs. I can't remember if he won the Worlds, but the internet will correct me.
Yeah.
But DMC, he was a white guy, right? And, if you ever see that clip, I seen that clip when he won. That was, I think that was the year he put the 10-speed on his shoulder.
Okay.
And he was cutting with the 10-speed with the tire on the turntable, like.
What the fuck?
Yeah, exactly. Like, or if you've ever seen guys like Scratch, where Scratch will take his shirt off, or the one where he does Black Sheep, pick it up, and he's picking up the turntable while he's scratching. I missed that about. Huh?
Are those on YouTube?
That must be because he's done that. He would do that at shows. But like some of those shows are important. Like a lot of that stuff helped mold me. Like I fell in love with hip hop, for various reasons. But like there was a special time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. You worked with Sade?
Yeah, through 40. 40
what
remixed.
was that experience like?
Well, he remixed the Moon in the Sky. So Gadget and I mixed the song. So some of those credits I kind of like forget about because when it's mixed and people layer them in, people get lost with producing and engineering. And they're similar but different. And I don't try to claim things, but like, it gets confusing sometimes, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's all one and the same animal. But
did you get to meet her?
Myself personally, no. No, I never got to meet her. I mean, that's all 40. I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. What? We're doing what? Like when, I don't know what year it was, like the OVO Fest, when they brought Stevie Wonder out. Whoa. And me and Gadget knew, and we're at the console, we had like a proud moment because we were like, nobody knows Stevie's coming out. Yeah. We know he's coming out, and we're just like, wow.
And you got to meet Stevie.
Well, just the whole concept, the fact that like you could even make this happen, right? Like, like those are moments, like I was cussing those guys the other day about, and I didn't get to work on the Michael Jackson song like a little kid, right? And they're like, where'd that come from? And I'm like, cause I worked on a Drake record in so long, but when I seen the Michael Jackson song, I'm like, you guys are supposed to call me for that one. Cause like certain ones, like I just got something the other day. I'm not gonna tell nobody about it cause I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but
you don't want 40 to
I told 40, but I'm like, I might need you, but remember, there's special ones, right?
Yeah.
If you got some lost Biggie or something, you're supposed to call a man, Because I thought I had the last ODB until Busta Rhymes dropped it on my head. Because I did the song with Method Man and Old Dirty Bastard, Dirty Meth. So I thought, when I came, I was like, damn, somebody got one more.
Wow.
Because you don't know what's out there, right?
You worked on that song. That's
I had
memorable.
I'm seem to get a lot of like, I've been doing a secret record right now with some people that have passed. And I don't want to talk about it, but it kind of happened when the pandemic started.
Okay.
And it's some wild stuff's been happening because of it. But I have a track record of working with dead people for some reason. Like they just fall into my lap. I know it's really creepy.
Yeah.
But I like doing kind of like rebuilding a song. I'm into that. It's fun for me.
Yeah. And even before we even get to like the Drake credits, the Drake credits, sorry. How did you meet 40? Because like that's a mutual friend of ours. You know what I'm saying? You were working out of CR3 where I was recording podcast episodes and stuff
the last
over there
time I
too.
seen you. No, I met him way before the Drake stuff. He, I used to have a studio. Well, I didn't have it. So my management, my friend Chris Smith had a label called Blacksmith.
Yes, I remember that.
We did the Divine Brown album. There's another perfect example. If you go check the Divine Brown album, you'll notice that I don't have any credits and 40 doesn't have any credits.
Wow.
Except the Twist My Hair remix, which also has a Drake feature on it.
Yes, it does.
Right? So that was the Blacksmith days. So Blacksmith was after Soundproof. Soundproof was a studio we had that was near the Club District on Camden. Rest in peace to Dean, because Dean owned that. Dean was also part owner of Fluid and Red Drink Boutique and Badeau, and he used to be a b-boy back in the day. So Dean, I worked at Tyson myself were the engineers at Soundproof. So when Soundproof was finished, Chris's office was across the street.
Okay.
And he wanted to build like a studio. So one day I got the call and I ended up building that studio. And then while I was building that, I needed some assistance because I couldn't do everything. So I called Trebus and was like, send me my boy Lindsay, shout out to Lindsay, was still working there. And I was like, yo, send 4 of your best guys. And one of the guys that came was 40. And then him and I just became friends. All the guys were good, but he seemed to be like, I could just throw him in the fire. And, him and I we really became like brothers way before the Drake stuff. When the Drake stuff hit, I was in Atlanta. I don't even know. We always would keep in touch and stuff like that because him and I stayed in Brooklyn a lot together. We're actually Flatbush legends.
Flatbush legends.
Yeah. So him and I, it was kind of like a turning point for me around then because one of my friends, lost a lot of my friends. I've lost a lot of recently, but at that point I was losing a lot of friends, and one of my friends was killed, and I started, contemplating life and stuff, and I was like, because I used to DJ at the strip club, so I was like DJing at the clubs again part-time, but I was working at the best studios, doing all the best, I did all these records, I'm like, life's too short. Like I'm going back to New York. I started, and I started, here. It's like here, see ya. So, when the Drake stuff started popping, I was like, damn, like you guys who's this guy? He wasn't there when I left. Obviously he was, but when we were over at Blacksmith, it was more like days when. See, before that, me and Gadget and Tyson were like doing most of the records in the city. But when me and Gadget went over to Blacksmith, Gadget wasn't an engineer, he was an A&R.
And for the people who don't know who Gadget is, and
go find out.
Go find out.
Yeah.
He on everything.
Right. So Gadget. So here we are. Gadget's my boss. He's the A&R. I'm the head engineer, and I have 40 and all these other guys under me. Right. And it's funny because originally we were thinking about doing like a super production team because everybody had different talents. I'm the drum guy apparently. So I was kind of like, and I kind of left. And all this stuff came because that's actually where they met, was at Blacksmith. That's where Drake and 40 met apparently. That's the story I was told by Chris. I think Drake was looking for management, right? So it's just interesting to see how that worked out, right? Like you could have convinced me not to go, or something. Like I thought, I'm going, I'm not going, I'm going, and 40 was a catalyst, and like, no, we should go, and we start going, and me and him would just go, and just go there and hang out and start, because it's a lot of work. You can't just show up in a city and expect them to hand you the keys. You know what I'm saying?
This is true.
So it took a while for me to really get my feet wet, but it was like, it happened pretty fast. I get pretty lucky. I knew I was either going to be in over my head or like a superstar because I'd went through so much hell here. We had so many close calls, so many firsts, so many, I was doing all the records for the artists here that were signed to labels there anyway. So it wasn't like I wasn't used to being on that level, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it really was a growing time because I was still in my early 30s.
Yeah.
And I used to tell people I was like in my 20s still, you know what I'm saying? Like, because I could pass, you know what I'm saying? Like,
so quick question, even with the whole 40 and Drake, right? A lot of people call him, I'm talking about 40 specifically, right? Or Noah Shebib for the people who don't know, right?
Yeah.
Even though everybody should know at this point, right?
well, you know.
You know, a lot of people call him a musical genius,
Right.
right? And I believe so.
Right.
Did you see that potential from back then?
Well, yeah, definitely. But I mean, you know, it's like he's the first one to tell you. Like he did like an interview the other day where he was talking about the washout with the beat. And he's like, that was Drake. And he said another time, he's like, yo, if it wasn't for Drake, I'm just a kid in the basement making beats. And I totally feel that because like my album, I got all these songs on there. I've been making beats forever.
Yeah.
How many beats did I not use? How many beats? But sometimes, you know, sometimes they get through. Sometimes it's just timing, man. And I think he understands that because he's been doing music.
Yeah.
You feel me? Like,
Well, he was our engineer and producer.
you're right. So I mean, you know what I'm saying? He already had a history of doing records in the city. So I mean, it's not like, and you know, with me and with Gadget and you know, like whatever we were working on. So I mean, I definitely knew he was talented.
Yeah.
I just didn't know it was gonna go where it went. But of course, because along the way, I would laugh and go, yeah, of course. Because some of the things that we used to go through were magical, you know what I'm saying? Like some of the moments, some of the things we went through. And don't get it twisted, we talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
And I talk to him all the time and we laugh because I'm just like, wow. I'm still like, wow. Where Drake went to, where the whole thing went, I'm just like, wow. You know, like never in a million years. It could have been just another one of those pegs in the stove that like, because it's not the type of artist situation that happens every day. You know what I'm saying? And it depends how you look at it, right? He could have been like, when it started popping, he could have just went and barricaded himself. But he did the one thing that not everybody does, right? He came back for us. When they got their deal, it was like, yo, G, yo, Gat. Like, he came back. Ah, can you guys, and we were all happy to do. There's stuff like, me and him got to it one time where he was asking me about something. I was like, bro, I had and then we laughed because I was like, yo, you don't understand because you weren't there. And I go, I had the greatest memory because of that, but you gave us that.
Yeah.
Because it was the Thank Me Later, the Jay-Z song that me and Gadget mixed it.
Okay.
But me and Gadget had like a great time that weekend. It was like, we had been through so much. We're just happy to see somebody get through.
Yeah.
And we don't care who it is. That's what we've been fighting for the whole city, trying to get somebody through and put our energy behind and our time and give.
Yeah.
To see somebody, that's what my album is about. I'm trying to give to my communities and do something. I didn't have to do the album.
Yeah.
I'm trying to see somebody get through. Not that they need me. I'm just trying to help give a push. So that's what that was. So for him to come back and go, here, I want you guys to do it. He could have done it himself, right? Because he produced the song. Yeah. Right? But we did it. We had as a historical moment for our relationship musically on so many levels that when because somebody said I said something and I was just like, no, you don't get it. It's not about that. It's about this. I wasn't claiming it. And then when he understood, and I was like, yeah, because that was magical for me. I have so many jokes from that weekend. Yeah. For me and Gadget were like, we kept moving his vocals around and doing all kind of stuff like, yo, should we do this? Or, you know, stuff like, we didn't know where it was going to go then. We were just happy, like, because that could have been it.
That was album one.
But yeah, it was album one. Yeah. But that was because most people don't understand when it's a double-edged sword. I said this the other day. When I'm working on a record, even if it's not that big, but when it is, I have the memory of when the song's being made. Yeah. You guys get it, the memory of when that was your jam.
Yeah. When the first time we heard it.
But that's my jam when I'm making it. It's like our little secret. Like I have songs like that never came out that are my secret jams because the world will never hear them. Yeah. But I have the memory of making them. Sometimes it can be a disappointment, but sometimes it's like, it's my own little, it's just part of the being, you know, like Prince's Vault or like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you get to have that. But, or like when you're working on a song and it hasn't come out yet. Like I got a song dropping next week for the person that just called me that I'm featured on. I can't wait. I've been playing it every day. Yeah. But I can't let nobody hear it. You know what I'm saying? But I'm excited. Those are the fun moments of doing this, right? Yeah. Or like me and 40 driving around while he's working. Yo, let me play the new Drake song. And you get excited and you can only share it with certain people, right? Yeah. So that part of it is fun, you know? Because like, we should be so lucky. That's what it comes back to, right? Yeah. And that's the theme of it all. I'm like, damn, we're lucky, man.
Let me ask one more question on the Drake and 40 relationship before we move on to other stuff, right? Do you think that there would be a Drake without 40 and vice versa?
It's a tough one because they did really kind of bring it back to the like Guru and DJ Premier to like remember when the DJ was
a good analogy.
Remember when the DJ was the producer for the rapper? That's how it used to be. So it doesn't make it doesn't, and he's a big fan of DITC, so it's not far-fetched that it would work out that way because that's how it used to be. Like, you know, but at the same time, Drake's so talented that you gotta think that he probably would have been okay without him, but yet they made a sound together. So that is a big, big part of it. And it's a hard call because I'm sure he does rap on other people's productions, but, you know, he's already been established his sound then, right? Yeah. So, it's a tough call, but I mean, you know, it's almost like a situation where you need each other. Like, it's like, you know, any of the great situations, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm, and that's where the magic is. Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes it's not the same, right? If you write the story over without it, like Dre and NWA, right? Mm-hmm, and that story's been told over and over, and it is a factor, man. So, I mean, it's a tough call, you know?
I ask the tough questions sometimes, man.
You got to keep it tough.
And you, from back in the days, you've worked with, like, you mentioned Socrates, you know, there's Glenn Lewis. Give us some more legends. And we mentioned
Choclair, Cardinal Official, Ghetto Concept, Jellystone. I actually have a personal vinyl collection of records that I engineered on. A lot of them are Toronto. One I pulled out the other day, Blue Scorpion. Shout out to Rexdale, Red Life. I don't know if you remember those.
Yes, I remember
Grassroots. Red Life. I didn't get to work on a Citizen Kane back in the day, even though that's why I wanted to do that song with him.
Yeah, big up Spades.
But there's so many like Point Blank. There's so many groups that I forget, so many sessions. Like, you know, guys like Maestro. There's, there's so many people that, you know, Thrust, Divine Brown. There's so many artists, like the singers too, I'm forgetting. So many, like I used to do a lot of in the R&B world. Julie Black, you know what I'm saying? Like there's so many people that, you know, Tara Chase, there's so many, like you know, cause it's more easy to remember when you're in that time, but like there was,
that's a healthy list that you just put out right there.
But there's people that go, oh, you did the song, I remember, you know, it goes again to like, I was in the studio, you know, like I'm forgetting so many people, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. You know, but that was how the vibe was. I was like in the studio 24/7. That's what I was known for. I was always awake, bro. Yeah. I was always just, because I felt lucky to be able to do that. To be able to do, and it wasn't about money. I used to get off on the vibe that I'm actually making music. Yeah. Right? Now that didn't wear off. I still like remind myself, but like I'm lucky. So that is what used to drive me, and it still drives me. I was in New York recently, and I remember me and Eric and Boogie, shout out to Eric Sermon and Boogie, we're in the studio and we had like a beat battle. Here, take some sound. We all went and made beats. Yeah. And just for the fun of it. Yeah. And we were like, okay, whichever one's the best we're going to use. And I don't even know if it got used, but the point is we're all grown and we're still like, we still have the same passion and drive for making music. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes I get on myself for not being as on like, oh, you gotta, you know, but when I go, right? And people, I'm known for that. So people are like, yo, bang, bang, I'll go. Throw me in, coach. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm thankful that I was able to be able to do it, and then I'm still able to do it. So that's what that fuel was back then. I was like, yeah, who's in? Okay, let's go. Because, I could track records and fall asleep. Like I could fall asleep while you're doing your vocal, wake up when you're ready to punch. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If I needed a nap, because that's all I did, was just like, that's all I wanted to do was
24/7 music. Yeah. They have that expression, don't meet your heroes.
Yeah.
Have you ever
Doesn't always
had...
apply.
It doesn't always apply?
No.
You've
it's
never
always a
met
bad
somebody
thing.
who totally turned out to be an asshole?
Yeah, that's happened. But I've also been the opposite where, I always tell the story now because Redman was my favorite rapper of all time. And then I got to be around Red through Socks. And it wasn't something I ever when it started going like, yo, let me be around. It wasn't like that. It would just kind of happen. But I eventually was like around Red when Socks wasn't there. And then me and Red became good friends. And he's like my uncle. We always say, we call each other uncle because you never disrespect your uncle. And that's a testament to the bond of like, you have brothers, but we're saying we're like family. That's my uncle. Like, yo, uncle, you good? And he would call me nephew. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's some real... So like, I mean, for me, that was like, I'm sure we had our ups and downs, who knows? But like, at the end of the day, when you go through stuff with somebody and they're your hero like that, I used to have moments to be like, damn, I'm in the studio with Redman.
Yeah.
Wow. In my head, I would never show that, right?
Yeah.
And then I think me and Red became solid so he could see what kind of person. It's more because of, what kind of person you are.
Right.
Because you want somebody around you could trust, right? Like, you want to know that I'm in the studio, I'm not leaking nothing. I'm not stealing nothing. I'm not telling, like, you got to trust people.
Yeah.
And I'm the same way. So, I mean, you got to go through. So when you go through stuff with people, that's how you become close. Like, even stuff like outside the studio. Because a lot of times you might have a relationship with an artist that's just in the studio.
Right.
You might not know the personal side of them, right? So, but yeah, I've seen it the other way. Nobody that I could think of off the top of my head that I'd be like, oh yes, I met so-and-so and they were a jerk.
Yeah.
But I know it's happened. And that's somewhat disappointing. And I try to be, govern myself accordingly.
Yeah.
You're either a piece of shit or you're not.
Yeah. One question that we always ask to our guests, and you're a man you've been around a lot of places. You're born and raised in Toronto.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you've seen the city evolve to where we are now, right? And I asked all our guests this because we have a really serious gun problem that's going on in our city, right? Yeah. So what I always want to figure out is what we can do to bring it down, because I know it's not something that we could completely eradicate because people are always going to have some kind of issue. But what can we do to bring it down so the numbers aren't so high?
Well, there's a difference. Now, see, we've always had that problem, right?
Yes.
Now it's gotten worse, right? Now I come from an era where, when I came up, they tried to shoot me at Kennedy Station.
Wow.
Somebody reported I had a gun. And back then, I was rocking a leather jacket. And the only thing I can think of is I had my clippers, because I used to cut at Fur Valley in Cataraqui. There was a barbershop. I used to cut hair like I was like the guy in the hood, my neighborhood that everybody went to for a haircut. Yeah. That was one of my hustles. And I was 15. I've been cutting hair since I was 13. I even got a mark in art class because I used to do designs and stuff, right? So nobody's cut my hair except maybe one or two people really close to me since I was 15.
Right.
Because I used to cut my own hair. Fade, everything, full line. So they tried to shoot me because somebody reported I had a gun. But I had clippers on me. But this is after my boy was shot.
Right.
But back then, it was more of a code, I guess. But to answer your question, there's two things going on. One is stupidity. Dudes is pulling out over all kind of stuff. I had somebody challenge me on some bullshit the other day because I gave him the finger and acting like they ready to go to tell him how about you can, because why do you think I'm giving you the finger? You're being stupid. Don't be stupid. I'm not going to kill you over it.
Yeah.
That's just absurd. Like, and especially over words, like that incident the other day I don't know what happened in the LCBO. They shoot each other over social. They're like, come on, guys. That's what's happening. It's like, you got to A1 value life, and people are, I don't know if it's social media or the generation. We, at least, like back in the day, we would do stuff, but like, if you're going to kill somebody, you know that's a serious line to cross. If you're going to pull out your hammer and start shooting, that's a serious line to cross. You got to be ready for it doesn't seem like people are thinking about that.
This is facts.
That's the first factor. So like I don't know if you've seen the one in the clip where the little kids running down the street here, Blue Jays Way, right? And like, come on, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There used to be a code, right? You don't start shooting with remember the one I wasn't even here, the Eaton Center shooting, when the guy started letting off in the food courts. Like, bro, man, follow the guy outside then. Yeah. Are you gonna shoot up a bunch of people who don't don't involve other people in your beef? We can't respect that.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm not scared of jail. I'm not scared to die. So I'm saying that from a place because I have people test me all day. Every time. Like, even on the way here. Somebody got mad at me because I honked at them. I'm like, who cares? Yeah. It's like, so people need to get over that. But to go back to the original question, the problem is you got to ask yourself why. What's the fighting over? Okay, the turf wars are a result of what? Why are people having turf wars? Because of they're over the game, right? So the drug war, okay? Yeah. So all these things are a direct result of the economy, of there not being enough jobs. And maybe there are jobs, but you got to look at the money. It goes back to economics. It's hard to convince kids or anybody to go work. You got to level the playing field is what I'm saying.
There's a disproportionate
we got to offer something maybe perhaps the weed legalization has changed that game, and maybe, because I've seen guys who used to sell weed working at weed stores now. So, I mean, maybe that's changed that a little. Like, things like that. Like, in one of the states, they decriminalized certain drugs, but like 2 grams of cocaine or this amount of grams of meth. So, like, if you were a user, you're not being locked up. And because when you get locked up, sometimes stuff happens in jail. Then you become part of the system and you're lost in the system. You never come out. Like, all kind of stuff can happen. And then you're changed, and all these things come into play, man. So, I mean, a lot of the people making the policies haven't lived these experiences, and they're not thinking, I think, about some of the things that come into play. Yeah. Like, why are people having such a disregard for life? You know what I'm saying? Or stuff like, you could have something happen to you, it's how you handle it. Right? Because I've been in the same situation. My friend's been murdered. Do I go kill somebody else as a result? Yeah. To make myself feel better? Because that's really what it's about. Yeah. It's about me making myself feel, because I feel hurt that they killed my friend, and I want them to feel the same. Like, but is that going to solve anything? Yeah. Right? And that's now becomes a spiritual or religious or whatever, how you want to look at it, context within yourself, and it's a morality issue. And so, I mean, come on. At the same time, it's the youth that are crying in pain. And a lot of it sounds like I'm being, corny or whatever. But at the same time, it's people get into this life because there's nobody around them to help them. Nobody believes in them. Think of how many people gave up on their dreams. And it doesn't have to be a rapper. A man can be like, yo, I want to have a car detailing shop, and could never get it. Nobody believed in me. And then, you know what, selling drugs is easier, or this or that. Some people will get caught in it, and then they don't even get to have the life that you think that they're defending. You know what I'm saying? Like, what are you doing? That thing that happened the other day baffled my mind, because I have experiences all the time where people test me, right? And it's how I react. Like, a lot of times I choose to react with positivity, whereas I used to not be like that, right? Like, I had a guy one time on the highway being reckless and stuff, and I'm like, yo, it's gonna end soon, and when we get off, I'll see you. And when we get off, I was upset, but I explained to the guy, I'm like, bro, I don't want to see you get hurt. Yeah. Because I do something, you don't know how I'm gonna react, and I don't know how you're gonna react. Yeah. And that could take have an effect on our lives, right?
Yeah.
And my main concern is safety. I want to make it home every day, right? Yeah. So, I mean, we really kind of need to think about that and think about other people. And that's really what stops me a lot from doing, like I get up, I have a bad temper, but I have to keep myself in check because, it was Bishop who told me. And I always shout out to Bishop because I got stuff to do tomorrow. He told me that you'll just tell yourself, remind yourself, no, I got stuff to do tomorrow. Because if this happens, I could be in jail or I could be dead. Then I can't do the stuff I got to do tomorrow. And when he told me that, I was like, you're right. You know what I'm saying? So always keep that in mind. The other thing that keeps me in check is, and I got to get out myself again, is going to the gym and being healthy. And I like to box. So boxing and being physical.
Getting the aggression out.
Yeah, and getting the aggression out and keeping your mind and your spirit and your physical being healthy and, and ceremony. And I know the pandemic's been tough because I haven't been able to do ceremony unless I go do it by myself, right? And it's not always easy if you're not a certain person, you don't know how to do certain things. Like I know how to build a lodge, I know how to conduct a ceremony, I know how to do it. I could go do it myself, but still a lot of work to do that on your own, right?
That sounds like
so
it.
all these things, but you got to motivate yourself, like to go to the gym, to get on the boxing, like now I'm like, oh, I got to buy weights for when the gym's closed.
Yeah.
Like little things like that, right? So, these things go a long way and maybe everybody doesn't have access to this. And it's not just the hip hop community. It's not just the Black community. It's not just the indigenous community because it happens in all communities, whether it's Indian from India or Hindu or Sri Lankan or Ethiopian, Somali. There's all types of communities in Toronto that have similar situations, not always drugs, right, or turf, but there's all these things happening, and a lot of it is there's not as much outlet, right? And so the next question now becomes, how do you change that? And what do you do to give the kids more? And it goes into back into having access to stuff, like even things like the rinks, outdoor rinks. Maybe not everybody's into skating, but like you got to find out what people want, right? And and no, I don't think anybody's doing that. We have leaders who are saying all this stuff, but it's all bureaucracy. Everything's slow. It takes time and years. Look at the subways, right? Subways are a perfect example of what we're talking about. Right. Oh, you want things to change? They built what? One subway in my whole life? What, the Shepherd line? They're talking about the Ontario line now. I'm like, what am I going to be, 70? Right? We need to speed things up, man. So what if it was your kids dying? Then you're all gung-ho? Yeah. Right? And I've seen it happen. I've had friends where I've had to, I've seen my friends' families go through the trauma.
For sure.
I've been through it myself with people around me. So, I mean, when you experience that, it could change you in a lot of ways, right? So I don't know if I don't want people to have that experience to motivate them, but it's almost like people haven't had those things. Those types of things, those wake-up calls. So I don't know what the answer necessarily is, but maybe, we just need to do more. And sometimes it's just funding. And I'm pretty sure this government has enough money that they could do a lot of things,
Well, I feel like we got a lot of jewels from even what you've explained to us right now, right? Yeah. And with everything that you have gone through with the game, everything that you've been doing over the last year, right? What do you have that's coming up next?
Well, I have the remix EP is dropping on November 19th. Spirit of Hip Hop. I keep saying EP. They keep seeing an album because it's 10 songs.
Well, 10 songs is technically kind of an album.
Yeah, but I was in my head, it was an EP, right? Yeah. Because I didn't know what number I was going to come out with. So now it's another album. The remixes. Spirit of Hip Hop, the remixes. So we got DJ Agile, Rockweiler, Hagler. Shout out to Hagler.
Shout out to Hagler.
I tried to get 40. He was busy.
Shout out 40 same way.
But yeah, who else is? Let's not talk about who's not there. Boogie the Beat. Shout out to Boogie the Beat, who redid the Winnipeg song because he's in Winnipeg. Dope. Sebastian Gaskin, who redid Res Life and killed it. I don't want to leave anybody out. Rockweiler, I said Rockweiler. Myself, and Classic Roots. I did a dance remix of Turtle Island. Nice. Which is fire. Because I don't always get to release songs like that. Yeah. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. Vanguard's DJ Chemo. Shout out to DJ Chemo.
Shout out Chemo.
Yeah, who remixed Feathers.
Fan City.
Yeah, Feathers. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. But I redid Rise or Fall. I remixed that.
Nice.
Geez, I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. I got to get a list in front of me.
Well, for anybody who you might have forgotten now,
yeah,
I suggest to the audience to go and check out your
the
stuff.
remixes. Yeah, the remixes is it's a new approach to, because back in the day the songs would have had remixes. You would have dropped the singles and there would have been remixes on them, right? And I didn't necessarily have the budget, or I wasn't even thinking about it. So when the pandemic hit, I was already working on some. Mm-hmm. But then they got the idea, why don't you do more? And then I was like, all right, cool. And then, but then the gift and the curse comes back, because here I am doing the same songs again, right?
Yeah.
Right? But that's okay. But so I got the remixes coming. And then I got this secret project I've been working on with Tretch, Outlaw by Nature. So look for that in the new year.
Nice.
That's going to be, I don't want to talk too much about it. That's going to be extremely special. It is something that was birthed from the pandemic. So shout out to Tretch, because it's really like, man, on another level. The way it happened is just magical. There's a lot of magic going on. So the remixes are coming, and then I kind of was like, I've been doing some production for other people. Mm-hmm. I got a song dropping with my boy Aspects called Do or Die that we just shot the video for.
Okay.
Where I'm featured on. Now everybody's going to try to get me to sing a hook when they hear this. Mm-hmm. But the song's really dope. I'm really proud of it. That's coming out next week. But I'm kind of was going to, I was supposed to be in New York. We're doing a bunch of records with, what am I saying? A Keith Murray album, I'm almost finished.
Hey.
Shout out to Keith Murray. I've been working on a project with Eric Sermon, shout out to Death Squad. Bandit. But I was supposed to be there working on that. Mm-hmm. So I don't, I've been here because they got a bunch of stuff popping that I was supposed to be working on. So I'm kind of cheesed off that I've been here.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm dying to get back. I was trying to clean my plate. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So and then I may or may not do a new album. I'm not sure. We're gonna see. We're gonna see what happens.
Well, Dave, I really appreciate you having this conversation with me. I feel like our audience has gotten to know a lot more than even like the information that's already out there, right? Because I know you have like content out there where people can find out like, your history of where you grew up and all that type of stuff. Yeah. But, I felt like we were able to pull out a few other pockets of information that maybe our audience or other people from who might have heard your other content haven't gotten to hear before.
Well, there's stuff like Apple has a playlist, Behind the Boards playlist for me that has songs that essentially it's supposed to be production, but I'm like, there's so many more that I engineered that I was like, let me pick my best songs, even if I didn't produce it. So they put a great playlist there together for me.
Dope.
And then they also just launched the Indigenous Sounds Room,
nice,
which features my artwork, and on a playlist called Indigenous Now, which features my artwork, and which is a new playlist that's updated weekly that features current Indigenous music.
Okay.
Right, which is a game changer. So that room not only features my artwork, is a great opportunity for Indigenous artists. So shout out to Apple for getting me involved and giving me a Behind the Boards. Because when I seen that, because I was up there with like Dre, RZA, like legends. Yeah. There's me, right? So I was like, wow. So that was very important. So if you want to check out more music I've worked on, that playlist is a great example because you could see not just the eras, but you got Drake and you got Red and Meth and you got EPMD and you got Shaw Claire and you got like me and Cardi did a song with Pete Rock one time. Like there's certain songs that you're like you can see Glenn Lewis or Sade or whatever's on the playlist. It gives you it
gives you a hub.
Yeah, it gives you a nice variety of what I've been doing over the years because sometimes I forget and sometimes it takes other people to tell me. Like the other day I found my names on my high school Wikipedia. They got me as notable alumni. And I was like, damn. Yeah. So I mean, it's really good to have those, so shout out to Apple for giving that love to me to be able to have that. So if you want to go check it out. Also, Spotify has a lot of good playlists. They helped me do one in the spring and summer.
Okay.
That was all Indigenous. So it's really good to see these platforms working with the artists like that. You know what I'm saying? Apple also gave me a great interview on my Apple. If you go to my Apple profile, they did an interview with me.
Okay.
With a great synopsis of my career and stuff. Like, these are things that, you know, I've been behind the scenes. So when I decided to come forward, I didn't know how it was gonna, you know, come through. So it's great to see all the love and the supports. I really appreciate it. Even yourself letting me come on, you know, doing the show.
Well, we appreciate you. And, you know, for our viewing audience, you know, I'm going to do the regular, you know, like and subscribe and all that, you know, another 6 Views interview in the vault, right? But through this conversation that we just had here, I feel like I'm also going to make this a We Love Hip Hop audio for the We Love Hip Hop podcast so that our listening audience can get some of these jewels. So thank you again very much. And if you don't mind, I'm going to call you Gordo. Cause that's
we like family, bro. We like family. We all got, you know, sometimes family, extended family, you become family. So that's how I looked at it. When I seen it was you, I was like, oh, snap, you know, it'll be a good day.
Dope.
That's what's up.
Thank you so much.
You done know. Thank you, brother.
Another one in the vault, 6 Views uncut or 6 Views interviews. We Love Hip Hop. That's what it is. Cheer.